QICS for Emergency Department Overread and Discrepancy Management. When it comes to interdepartmental communications, many sites suffer. Most evident in radiology is the communication between the ED and radiology. This typically occurs on nights and weekends where the emergency department staff is supposed to input a preliminary interpretation of an exam, which tends to be a manual entry into a study notes field, paper form, or some other manual task. And then the radiologist, when they come in the next day, has to overread that exam to provide the final report. And in the instance of a discrepancy, they're required to contact the emergency department and deliver that event back into the department. This becomes labor-intensive for both the ED and the radiology staff, and when you're dealing with manual efforts, paper forms, and other tasks within this workflow of communication, statistics and reporting tend to be slim to none. The peerVue solution provides a simple, easy 1 to 3 click process for both the emergency staff, the radiology staff, and as well as the closing the loop of the discrepancy and documenting what had been done for that patient.
I will now walk through the 3-step process now. First, logging in as an ED user, I have the capability to look at specific cases from overnight or on the weekend or wherever there's not 24/7 radiologist coverage. From this exam list, I'm able to launch to an exam that I would be reading in the emergency department, and simultaneously, peerVue has the capability to launch their ED prelim panel. Within the ED prelim panel, this is typically custom defined for the individual department needs, defaulting to a negative exam, and then displaying and breaking down specific diagnosis for positive findings by anatomy or other type of body part in correlation to the modalities being read by the emergency department. In this case, we're going to define this result as being negative. So the ED clinician can simply, with one click, launch the study from their exam work list in PACS, and with one click, submit a negative ED prelim finding. Now, switching over to the radiologist workflow, typically the next morning, where we're logging into PACS and addressing the evening or the weekend's emergency department preliminary reads so that final formal reports can be created. Once we're logged into PACS, the radiologist would navigate to their appropriate study work list. They would have the capability to launch to the exam in PACS, and peerVue would then have the capability to launch the appropriate ED overread panel. Within the panel, we give that user the opportunity to see what the ED clinician said the night prior or over the weekend that the study was negative. Upon reviewing this exam, the radiologist may notice that there is a discrepancy or some other type of finding that requires follow-up. In this case, perhaps, they've noticed that there's a fracture that was missed by the ED clinician. In this case, the radiologist would submit their discrepancy, which would then go on to alert the ED department in concordance to their site-specific business rules, and the radiologist would move on to dictate their final report and move on to the next case on their work list. In parallel, the peerVue system has the capability to alert the emergency department and their desired contact method that there's been a discrepancy that requires their attention and follow-up. We can alert them via work list, SMS, email, pop-up notification, or on a work list. Typically, this result will go to a more centralized location and not to the original ordering provider who may have provided the prelim, because the chances are that provider is no longer on staff. As you can see, we can alert the users that there has been a discrepancy. They can see that the prior evening that the ED clinician said the exam was negative, however, that the radiologist had found a fracture. They then have access to the full report if it's been completed, radiologist contact information in case there's any questions, and other clinician contact information on that patient's care team. They can then update the discrepancy follow-up and close the loop on this ED exam by indicating what action they took to care for that patient and the accounts of a discrepancy. In this case, we're updating the chart and then submitting and closing and providing adequate documentation for both the emergency department needs and the radiologist needs, including time and date stamps, audit trails, turnaround times, and review cases to be able to provide and have insight into the quality of the ED clinician's prelim, as well as the number of discrepancies over a given period of time.